Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. In this week's tutorial, we're going to be creating this vector notebook icon in Adobe Illustrator. So what you see on screen is exactly what we're going to be creating together. I'm going to give you the colors and then we'll get started. So the colors for these, we're working in RGB since this would be an icon that you would use on the web. So for this dark slate blue color right here, that is the color build for that. Here is the medium blue, the light blue, the teal color, and the gray that we're using. Okay, so I'm going to move this one out of the way and then we will start working. So we're going to start off by creating it straight and then we will rotate it at the very end to give this kind of more dynamic look to it. So the first thing we're going to do is just create a rectangle that's 3 inches by 2 inches. So I'm going to hit M on my keyboard, double click twice, and input 3 inches by 2 inches and hit OK. And I am on Illustrator Creative Cloud, which gives me these live corners, which are really amazing. It will be a bit longer of a process because if you want to apply rounded corners to an older version of Illustrator, you'll have to go to Effect, Stylize, Round Corners, and input the radius of your corners there. Whereas with Creative Cloud, you can just grab the corners and pull them in. And I'm going to pull them in where it says 0.1 inches. So just like that. And I'm going to color this one this light blue. So I'm going to hit I on my keyboard for my eyedropper and color this blue. And now we've got the base of our notebook, but you can see that it's broken in half because this is a spiral bound notebook. So in order to break it up, I'm just going to hit M on my keyboard and draw a really skinny rectangle. And this rectangle is going to be 0.05 inches, which you can see in that gray box that's showing up right there. If that's not showing up for you, make sure you turn your smart guides on. You can do that by going View, Smart Guides. And now we want this centered right in the middle. So I'm going to return back to my selection tool by hitting V on my keyboard. I'm going to select both of these and then just hit this icon up here at the top for horizontal align center. And now it's perfectly aligned in the middle. And then come over to your Pathfinder palette over here. If you don't see it, you can get to it by going Window, Pathfinder. And you just want to hit this icon right here for exclude. And then you want to ungroup everything. So Command-Shift-G or Control-Shift-G on a PC. And then you're just going to select and delete these extra pieces. So now I've got 2 pieces of my notebook right here. I'm going to group these 2 together. So Command-G or Control-G on a PC. And now I need to add in my paper right here. So my paper is exactly positioned within my notebook covers. So you can see that it's the same distance on all sides. And in order to accomplish that, there's actually a really quick way to do it. All you have to do is with your notebook selected, come over here to Object, Path, Offset Path. And you want to input a negative 0.1 inch offset. And if I preview this, you can see it pops in these pages that are right where we need them to be. So because it's on the inside, that's why we need it to be negative 0.1 right here instead of a positive 0.1. If we had positive, it would push it to the exterior of our notebook cover. So we're going to hit OK, and now we're just going to eyedropper this white, and we can eyedropper just the background of our paper right here. Okay. And finally, you can see I've added a little extra depth to my pages by adding a dark blue page right behind my white pages right here. Totally optional. I like that it adds a little bit of extra depth to the illustration, so that's what I'm going to do. So right now, everything is grouped together since that was an offset path. So I'm going to ungroup Command-Shift-G or Control-Shift-G on a PC. I'm going to select each one of these white ones, so hold Shift and then select your second one and just group these 2 white pages independently of the cover. So Command-G or Control-G on a PC to group. And now I want to make a copy of these. So hold Alt or Option on your keyboard and then tap your right arrow over once. And then release your Alt or Option key. And then you just want to tap them down 1 time. So you can see just like that. And now I can eyedropper this darker blue color, and I can send it behind my white paper. So in order to send it behind once, you can just hit Command open bracket and you can see it pushes it back just like that. And if I want to distance it just a little bit further, I can just hit my over arrow key and then my down arrow key. And I like that distance. So now that's all set. We've got that extra distance right there. So the next thing we're going to do is add in our spiral binding right here. So first we need to add in our little circles. So I'm going to zoom in nice and close right here. and put a circle up at the top. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool over here. And I'm just going to hold shift so I get a perfect circle as I start pulling it out. And I'm going to pull it out to 0.04 inches right there. You can see the little gray box. Okay, and now what I want to do is make a copy of the circle and position it all the way at the bottom of this page. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option on my keyboard, click and drag, and while I'm dragging, hold Shift to keep it straight, put it into position, and that looks good. And now I need to fill in the space between them, and I'm going to use my blend tool for that. So I'm going to put 10 more dots between these two dots, so I can do that with my blend tool. So your blend tool is right over here, just double click on it. Make sure specified steps is selected right here, and change this to 10 right here, and hit OK. And now what you want to do is when you have the little star appearing when you're hovering over your top circle, click once, and then come over your bottom circle and you'll see a plus sign and hit that once. And now it'll fill in the gaps. And now we need these circles to appear on the right page of our notebook. So I'm going to hold Alt, click, and drag. While I'm dragging, I'm going to hold Shift and position those just like so. And now we're all set for our spiral. So I'm going to grab my rounded rectangle right here, and I'm going to zoom in really close so we can see it really well, and just draw out a rounded rectangle. And my rounded rectangle settings are a corner radius of about 0.16, and this is my width and my height, 0.35 and 0.02. So I'm going to recolor this rectangle right here, my medium blue. So let me do that. I'm just going to hit I on my keyboard, click on it, and there we go. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing we just did with the dots, only with this rounded rectangle. So first I need to make a copy of this and position it down here. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option on your keyboard, click and drag. While you're dragging, hold Shift to keep it straight, and then position it right down here. And that looks like it snapped right into position, and it did. So now we can do the same thing we did with our blend tool. So just come over to your blend tool, double click, make sure you've got specified steps, 10 steps, hit OK. Hover over your top rounded rectangle until you see that star, click once, and then hover over the bottom one until you see that plus sign. Click once and you can see it filled in all the spaces, and now we've got our spiral bound notebook. So moving right along, we're making really good progress. The next thing we need to do is drop in our lines of text. Since this is an icon, we're just going to use some basic rectangles for this to give the impression of lines of text. So what I like to do is just hit M on your keyboard, and I like lining it up with this first dot and making it just a little skinnier. And that looks good. I'm going to eyedropper my gray color for this. And then I'm also going to make a copy of this, bring it all the way down like we did before. And now we're going to fill in the gaps right here, but I want these lines of text to be closer together so it doesn't look too similar to my spiral bound right here. So I'm going to double click on my blend tool one more time, and this time I'm going to change this to 15 steps instead, so it's a little denser than my spiral. So I'm going to click on this top rectangle, click on this bottom one. You can see I have way more lines of text than I have spirals over here for my binding. All right, so the next thing we need to do is make these individual elements. We don't need to worry about that for our spiral because our spiral is just going to stay the way it is, but we want to manipulate some of these lines of text so we can drop in areas that look like photos or illustrations within our notebook. So in order to do that, with this selected, I'm going to return back to my selection tool by hitting V on my keyboard. And with it selected, you want to come up here and go Object, Expand, and hit OK. And then ungroup. So Command-Shift-G or Control-Shift-G on a PC. And now these are individual elements. But I need these to be replicated over here because we're going to put in those illustrations or those photos on this side as well. So I'm going to reselect all of these lines, and then I'm just going to copy them over here. So Alt, click, and drag, and while you're dragging, hold Shift. And now we've got them copied over there. And for my notebook, I'm going to have a big illustration at the top of this side. So I'm going to delete all of these lines of text. And now I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, hit M on your keyboard, and I'm going to draw out a rectangle. And I want to make sure that it's aligned with the left side of this text. So I'm just going to drag it in until I see my smart guides telling me that it's in position. And this time when I drag in my corners, I'm going to drag them to 0.05 instead of 0.1 inches. And now I'm going to recolor this teal color. Okay. So now I'm going to put in 2 more illustrations. So there's going to be one on the side and one kind of rectangular one right here. So I'm going to do the square one on the side first. I'm going to hit M on my keyboard, and this looks like a good place for it. I'm just going to drop it in right here and then put another one like right here. And that looks good. And then I'm just going to pull in these corners one more time to 0.05 inches. So select this one, 0.05, there we go. And now I can select these rectangles. I'm holding Shift as I click, so I can select more than one at a time, and then I can just drag them over. So there's a little bit of distance right here between the photo or illustration and the text. So I'm going to do the same thing here, drag them over. All right, so now we need to put in our bookmark, which you can see is just this bar right here, which is really easy. Just grab your rectangle tool, draw it out from the top to the bottom. This one's going to be 0.05 inches. Eyedropper your dark blue color. And then if you'd like to add just a little bit more depth, you can add in a shadow right here. I've got this kind of flat style shadow of this light gray coming off of the back of the notebook. And if you'd also like to do that, just select your notebook. So I'm going to select this side and then this side. I'm going to group them together, Command G or Control G on a PC. And then in the same way that we added the extra depth for our notebook pages, we're going to do the exact same thing for this. So hold Alt or Option and then just tap your right arrow key over once and then release Alt or Option on your keyboard and then just tap the down arrow once. And now you can eyedropper the gray color, and we're going to send this to the back. So I'm going to hit V on my keyboard, right click, arrange, send to back. And now it's all the way in the back. And if you'd like to toggle it over a couple more clicks, you can do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to tap it over to the right once and then tap it down once. And then we've got our shadow. So this is all done. So now we need to group all of our elements together so we don't accidentally nudge anything to make it off center. So we're going to select everything, Command G or Control G on a PC to group. And then the final step is just rotating it, just to add a little bit of extra energy or visual interest to it because it is just a notebook. So with it selected, you just want to hit your rotate tool over here. So double click on your rotate tool, input -5 degrees, and you can preview it right here. So it's just a very subtle rotation, but it creates a really nice effect. So just hit OK, and now you are all set. So that is how to create a cute notebook icon in Adobe Illustrator. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe and don't forget to head on over to my site, every-tuesday.com, for even more design and lettering tutorials and a bunch of design freebies. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.